right, Will, here we go. It is the first week of the NFL regular season. We've lived through the offseason, which was fun, the preseason, which, sometimes it's a little bit long in the tooth. But here we are, game week. We got a game on Thursday night. You and I are recording this on Tuesday afternoon. The All 32 pod, Mike Giardi, Will Parkinson alongside. And it's an awesome time. It's not quite like Christmas, but it's pretty close.
I'd argue it might be better. It's an exciting time of year. We obviously finally have some real games to talk about. We've gone through each division. We've talked about some of the hold-ins, the holdouts, preseason performances, rookie quarterbacks, coaches under pressure, the whole 9 yards. We're getting a good rhythm here. We're rocking and rolling, but obviously no better time of year right now. The regular season, September. Playoff baseball, is coming up. The NFL regular season, we are locked and loaded.
You got playoff baseball. We're not going to have that in Boston yet again as they continue to treat this team like they're a small market team. A reminder that this show is brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media Network and Game Time. Best tickets, best prices to get you in to see any event you want to see. We use it. We use them both. That's why we stand behind them. So you want to use them as well if you want ease. We got a lot to do today, and we're going to just blast right through it. But first, we've got to get to the news of the day. San Francisco, there was a period of time where the Jets, who play San Francisco in San Francisco on Monday Night Football, looked like maybe they were going to avoid Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, and Christian McCaffrey. Now, definitely are going to see Ayuk. Looks like you're going to see McCaffrey. He's back playing. And now, apparently, Trent Williams close to a deal. And look, at the left tackle position, they could probably plug and play him tomorrow.
Yeah. Look, it sounds like, we talked about this for a while. There was no guaranteed money left on Trent Williams' deal, especially not any guaranteed money next year. There was it's a huge cap hit. I think it was like 36 or 37 million next year. But almost 20 million of it, the Niners could have freed themselves. Hey, this year doesn't go great. Trent looks his age, which he has not for the last 15 years, but the 11th-time Pro Bowler, hey, maybe, if the wheels fall off this year and he's not good, the Niners had no cap space in the future, they could just cut him. So he's obviously held out. I think there's a little bit of, hey, didn't want to have to practice throughout the last 5 weeks, especially in his, his late 30s here. So the deal looks like it's close to getting done. His brother posted the Instagram getting on the private jet with the money signs at, 3 a.m. this morning. So always fun. The NFL is never easy. And then you mentioned Brandon Ayuk. I think we all thought, and Mike, you mentioned this, I think, probably more than anybody I follow, is, does he really want to leave San Francisco? Like, what does he truly want? Ends up with the $30 million, whatever it was, a year, and, gets the deal for 120, large guaranteed number. The Niners able to retain him. Obviously, maybe down the line, that means maybe moving off of Deebo Samuel. I think it's a nice trade for the Niners based on where both guys are at. But yeah, I think if you were a Jets fan or kind of anybody in that NFC West division, he's kind of felt like at least Trent and McCaffrey were going to be there. Ayuk obviously was a little bit up in the air. We know we talked a lot about that deal, but it kind of came down to, like, what does he truly want? And he's not the highest paid receiver, but he's certainly got close in that top 5, top 6 range. And, the Niners, there's no better place for him to try to win this year. So, I think it makes the most sense all three of these have gotten done, or, potentially could practice today for the first time or tomorrow for the first time all summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly now that they have their full complement, it obviously changes the way you look at the opener. But again, short amount of time ramp up for these guys. And look, Trent Williams has had injury history, that hasn't been awesome. McCaffrey obviously dealing with a calf. That's never cut and dried like, oh, it's back and he's fine. No, he might be dealing with that for a while. So the question then becomes, do you want to run him out there for week 1, or do you want to slow play this thing thinking long term? You want to be playing your best football in January, and to do that, you're going to need Christian McCaffrey at something close to 100%. I mean, no one's 100% in January, but you know what I mean in that regard. There's also the game coming up right around the corner, right? We got football. It happens to be the Chiefs and the Ravens. Obviously, a game we saw in the playoffs last year, a game that the Ravens felt like they didn't play their best and still could have won the football game. Look, I think it's a fantastic way to start off the season to have these two teams in that spotlight.
Yeah, a couple of things I wanted to just quickly mention. Hassan Reddick is not reported as of about 2:30 Eastern on Tuesday. Everything that kind of was being circulated was a little bit like week 1 reporting is going to happen. It's only Tuesday. Things could change, but obviously not looking like any movement there. And then Jamar Chase showed up. Seems like they were going to get something done. Then he shows up late to practice in street clothes and a lot of weird stuff there. they have much less time to get something done. He's, in terms of him playing week 1, so we'll see there. But in terms of the game, I think a couple different things come to mind. I think this is a big game for Lamar, and I don't think this is just some, oh my God, career-defining game. But the narrative around Lamar is, the playoffs, and we talked about this 2 weeks ago or last week, on the AFC North pod of just what is Lamar, right? He's an MVP-level quarterback, one of the best regular season quarterbacks we've seen in some time, but the playoffs have not been kind to him. It kind of just feels like a statement game in terms of setting the tone for his 2024 season. And there certainly feels like there's more pressure on the Ravens. Again, neither team's going to get judged until we get to January. The Chiefs, obviously if they don't win the title this year, no one's going to look at them begrudgingly, but they've had a tumultuous offseason. They've added a bunch of talent that people are excited about on the offensive side of the football. Hollywood Brown's not going to play in this game, obviously, with the shoulder. But I just look at the Ravens, and I feel like we've seen this game so many times. You've covered this game a lot. Up in New England, obviously, the Patriots were in this game quite a bit. Mahomes referenced that, earlier this week, saying, hey, or not early, it was yesterday, but, saying, hey, we got to play in one of these before we had won the title, and it was this big honor. But I just feel like the Ravens kind of going out there and into Kansas City setting the tone for yeah, we were awesome last year and we let it slip away, but we're back and we're just as good. Even if I don't know if they're quite as good on paper, as a whole collective group, could they be just as good? So I don't know. I don't feel like there's a lot of pressure on the Chiefs. I feel like this is I don't know. They held this game last year and Chris Jones didn't play and Mahomes didn't look great and they lost to the Lions and no one cared. This kind of feels like the same situation where a lot of Ravens hype, similar to last year, a lot of Lions hype. Can you go in there and take care of business early on week 1?
Yeah, so I look at one of the things here is the defense coordinator, Zach Orr, who we talked about in the preview, 32 years old, taking over from Mike Macdonald. Macdonald did a phenomenal job, but it took Macdonald about 8 games into his first year as DC with Baltimore to sort of figure out how he wanted to use the personnel that he had. And obviously the idea here is that Orr is going to continue sort of the philosophy that Macdonald brought to the table, but he hasn't been coaching for very long. Like I said, he's 32 years old. This is something entirely new for him. It's a big spot against Patrick Mahomes. How does he adjust during the course of the game? How does he call the game? How does he deploy some of his personnel? I think we all, Kyle Hamilton's one of the 10 best football players in the world right now. And look, he's a safety. He's not going to put up these ridiculous numbers, but how's he using him? Is he going to use him as a pass rusher, blitzer? Is he going to use him more in coverage? Is he going to use him down? And there's all different ways he can deploy these pieces and try to, not that Mahomes hasn't seen pretty much everything at this point, but try to confuse or slow down Mahomes and the pace of that offense. But I'm really curious to see how he goes about it because McDonald got the maximum amount of that defense last year. They were phenomenal. Even in the playoff game that they lose to the Chiefs, 2 drives for Kansas City over the course of the entire game. Mahomes got a little crazy there for 2 drives, but then they held him down and had the offense done their job. Maybe we're talking about them being the team that's hosting the game and raising banners and getting rings and all those sorts of things. So I'm
the only question I was curious. I've seen a lot this week already, and it's only Tuesday, but this could be the 2018 Chiefs offense again. And they got Worthy and Brown and all this speed and these different things. Mahomes is obviously superhuman, et cetera. I don't know that maybe I'll be wrong. And maybe we'll be, we'll be sitting here in 2 or 3 weeks and be like, man, I don't know, are they going to go 15-2 and all that stuff? But I'm not there yet with that. I feel like Kelsey is nowhere near the same player. He's amazing in the playoffs, and when they need him, he's still got it. But I referenced this when we did the AFC US pod that Bill Simmons used to joke about Gronk, and you put him in the garage, he's the luxury car that you get 200 miles out of a year. I don't know that I'm expecting Xavier Worthy to be prime Tyreek Hill. So I think the Chiefs are going to be awesome. We're going to talk about it in a moment with our predictions, but I'm just kind of tentatively curious what they'll look like. Does Andy Reid kind of go back? They ran the football really well last year. They played really good defense, and Mahomes, for the most part, took care of the football and was really damn good when they needed him to be. That, to me, is the recipe to be this dominant team. I don't know if leaning on, we're going to be 50 touchdown Mahomes again, and we're going to try to beat teams 41-38. That doesn't feel like – it might be the fun thing, but I actually feel like the thing that makes them amazing is they can play really good defense and kind of beat the crap out of you up front.
Yeah, the only comparison to be made between Worthy and Hill is they're both incredibly fast. Tyreek is built like a brick bleep house, and Worthy is 165-ish pounds. And I've talked about sort of my trepidation about those skinny wide receivers. What do they end up amounting to? And he's had a good camp. By all accounts, it's been a good camp. I think we've seen some of the clips. He's capable of making some big plays for them. But the idea that you're going to plug him in and he's going to be something close to Tyreek Hill in 2018, I think is absolutely ludicrous. And again, now we'll have to see, because now people are, Kyle Hamilton's going to try to stick his helmet right through his sternum. That he's going to get those kind of hits on a slant or whatever. Can he handle that? Can he bounce back up, or does it slow him down or knock him out completely? So I think that's an interesting part of it. They're starting a rookie left tackle, Kingsley Suamaitea. I think I pronounced it properly. That's a guy that I thought the Patriots should have traded up to get. Kansas City traded up to get him in the second round, and now they're turning over the left tackle job to him. That's obviously a rather important role in that offense, but it's a great front aside from him in terms of what they have, especially in the interior. So if they get competent play out of him, it'll probably be an upgrade from what they got last year from the veteran Donovan Smith. And you mentioned the whole Lamar thing. Shame on me. When we talked about Baltimore, I didn't bring up Derrick Henry. And look, we know that Baltimore will utilize multiple running backs. That's just how they roll. But to have that battering ram, to be someone you can call upon when you get inside the 5-yard line, like, would it surprise you this year if Derrick Henry finished with 15 touchdowns, 17 touchdowns? Because, Lamar does some of his work from the outside. It's Henry on the inside. And I just feel like I remember watching them play the Patriots. The year the Patriots, I think, were undefeated going in there, and then Baltimore kind of ran them out of the building, and that was sort of the turning point for that Pat season, kind of went sideways. Mark Ingram was the running back then, and there was so much attention on Lamar and the way he handles the football that linebackers and ends kept getting caught peeking at him, thinking he had the ball, and he would have already handed it off to Mark Ingram, and Mark Ingram is at the second level before anybody even realizes that this is happening. Well, Mark Ingram was a tank. Derrick Henry's next level tank, even at this point in his career. So, I just feel like there's real opportunity for Henry to just kind of have one of those crazy years that we don't expect to see from a 30-something-year-old running back.
Isn't this the year that Derrick Henry puts up the numbers you probably expected the last 2 years, but is a far worse player? That's what it feels like. I don't think he's anywhere near the same running back. I think he's still good. I think there's not a lot of great running backs. There's a class we've talked about of McCaffrey, Hall, Bijan, and there's obviously more than that, but those are the guys that kind of come to mind. Jonathan Taylor, et cetera. I feel like Derrick Henry is going to take 2 steps back in terms of his performance from 2 or 3 years ago when the Titans went to those, title game and, were the 1 seed and then ended up losing the Bengals and Burrow. But he's going to be almost more productive just because, as you mentioned, getting down in by the goal line, punching a bunch of touchdowns in, a lot of lighter boxes when Lamar, if Lamar's cooking a little bit. I'm just interested to see how that offense rolls. New coordinators on both sides of the ball for the Ravens. As you mentioned, the Chiefs with a lot more continuity, but some new pieces to integrate. Again, both teams, I think the Ravens did lose a substantial amount of talent, but I also feel like the guys that they were relying on are only going to get even better, right? Tyler Linderbaum in year 3 is going to be awesome. Or, Mark Andrews fully healthy, should be awesome. Or things like that. Or Kyle Hamilton in year 3 or year 4. Yeah, no, it's year 3. Be able to be the superstar player. So, yeah, as you mentioned, Derrick Henry's one of those big name additions that we don't talk a lot about because he's not quite the same player. But I also think, as your point, statistically, it feels like, I don't know, maybe it's 1,100 yards, but it's 14, 15 touchdowns. And you're a little Mostert-ish last year where yeah. I don't know how great Raheem Mostert was compared. Devin Achane was better than him, but I don't know, man. Mostert had 18 touchdowns.
Yeah, it was 18, ridiculous.
20 touchdowns. It was nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Baltimore's offensive line, Voorhees is getting the start at guard. Obviously, well thought of coming out of college, had the torn ACL. So this is.
Remember when he benched at the combine 2 years ago? That was pretty cool with the torn ACL and put up a ton of reps. That was awesome. You were this guy is going to be a Raven, an Eagle, one of those teams.
Classic football guy, right? That just hardcore. So, there's some changes on the offensive line, but, I just have a great amount of faith in Baltimore's overall coaching to sort of coach those guys up. And maybe, obviously the expectations will look better later in the year as opposed to the beginning. But look, it's a fun game. It's that place is going to be hopping. Great way to kick off the year. And
it's probably the preview of the AFC title game for most people. For a lot of people, I should say, it's probably this game does matter as much as I know early in the season doesn't truly matter. Two reasons it matters. One, as we mentioned, both teams are teams that are probably vying for that 1 seed, which we'll get to here in a second, but also that tiebreaker of, hey, head to head, in conference record. Like it's not as much as Jets Niners is super exciting, which we'll talk about on Friday or probably on Monday's show. That game's awesome, and it's going to be box office, and it's probably more storylines in a sense of like what we don't know or do know. But that game doesn't matter anywhere near as much as this game does because, as I mentioned, that's non-conference. There's a lot of you expect the Jets to get better as the year goes on. The Niners Super Bowl hangover. This is like if the Ravens win this game and get out to a hot start, they want to host the Chiefs again. And if the Chiefs are like, I want to be back at home this year, as much as it was fun last year going into Buffalo and going into Baltimore and things like that. You
don't want to make your living doing that.
No, home field matters still in the NFL. I know in other places, there's sports and stuff, but I still think that getting that bye, home field, et cetera, it matters.
Hey, I want to remind you, Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. So if you're good with this sort of stuff and you like to project, this is the app for you. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch your winnings roll in. For instance, one Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win in Prize Picks every week in September. I mean, that's a no-brainer, isn't it? That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football week in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Free W's. Who doesn't like free W's? Jameis Winston, he loves the W. You got to eat the W. Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September ends. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Pick with as little as 4 correct picks. And I know you're into this. I'm into this. I'm already starting to crunch the numbers. I'm not gonna reveal that just yet in terms of what I'm thinking about the opening weekend. But look, this is a great opportunity for you. Download the Prize Pick app today. Use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. Again, 50 when you play just $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get 50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Pick, run your game. Speaking of running your game, let's get into our postseason predictions. And I know you went through this. I had the simulator. I'm picking every game for 17, whatever, how many ever weeks, 18 weeks we got. And now I'm going back going, wait, I only had them with 3 wins. That can't be possible. Go back and look at it. No, you got it right the first time. Just leave it be. So we're going to start with the AFC. I'll give you my division winners. I've got Kansas City, Baltimore, the Jets, and Houston. Wild card team, Cincinnati, Buffalo, and Miami. I have Kansas City as the #1 seed. Crazy, I know. So they get the first round bye. I have Baltimore with the same record, but again, KC gets the first seed. So they're the #2 seed. I have them playing Miami in the wild card weekend, and I have them beating Miami. I think it's going to be the same old story for Miami. I think they're going to get off to an awesome start, and we're going to be talking again about how Mike McDaniel has just redone it again with his offense, and then I think eventually teams are going to start punching at him a little bit, and they're going to wear him down physically. Christian Wilkins, by the way, not being there. I mean, that guy never came off the field last year. You don't replace that. For my that was the 2 versus the 4. How about the Jets and Cincinnati? And you're not going to like this. You're not going to like this at all.
Oh, man.
I'm thinking Shiesty gets it done in January. Obviously, that would be a home game for the Jets, but I just have it's been a weird year for Cincinnati. I just have a feeling that they figure it out at the end, and they're a very dangerous team. Then I have Houston over Buffalo. Buffalo, I think, is going to be a second half team this year, just like they were last year. I think they can make a strong run late in the season, challenged the Jets for the #1 seed in the AFC East, but in the end up in the wild card round, have to go to Houston. And look, I looked at various permutations because I don't like picking the same teams to get back to the postseason. History shows us usually 3 teams in each division, each conference don't make it the next year. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't find Indy. I was close, couldn't get them there. Jacksonville, close, couldn't get them there. No, the Patriots I did not have close and getting there. So that is how I have the wild card round, divisional round. KC hosts Houston. KC beats Houston. Baltimore, Cincy. Joe got it done in the first round. Not going to get it done against Baltimore. Baltimore KC for your AFC Championship game. Drum roll, please. Baltimore finally gets it done. I know people are going to scream at me. Lamar hasn't won in the playoffs. He's too good a player. It's time. Second year on the offense with Monken. Like I said, I think the offense should, especially the offensive line with a couple of young players, should gel by the end of the season. I like defensively what they're doing. I think, again, Zach Orr is going to have to figure out how he wants to use some of his pieces there. But I think at the end of the day, Baltimore gets it done. And look, part of this is also just a pushback. Not that I would ever, you don't like to bet against Mahomes. Another year going to the Super Bowl, like the three-peat is, when's it been done? Like it's just so hard. It's so hard. It's so hard to do. Feels like they're due for a little bad luck at this point. So that's mine, at least for the AFC. What do you have?
Yeah. So I submit mine for my other show with the Jets. And so I have the Jets winning the division. I've gone back and forth with how far they go, and I'll get to that in a second. I have Jets. I have Chiefs. Unfortunately, I have Ravens. I've gone really back and forth with the South. I've really struggled. I have the Chiefs as the 1 seed. I've really struggled with the South because I feel like everyone's picking Houston. Peter Schrager this morning on Good Morning Football made a point that I honestly hadn't really thought much about. The Texans last year played in the 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock window, 17 straight weeks. They played the easiest schedule in the NFL. And they got kind of lucky in week 17 or week 18 with that Colts game, and then they play Flacco, and they kind of got dog walked a little bit against Baltimore, and it was not so pretty. I have reservations about Houston, but I think they have the most talent in the division. I think they narrowly edge out the Colts. So I have Chiefs, Jets, Texans, and Ravens similar to you. I have it Chiefs, Jets, Ravens, Texans. Then I have from wild card teams, I have Buffalo as the 5 seed too. I know we're kind of on the same page. I initially was going to put Cincinnati as my 6 seed. And I went back and forth with it. I don't like the vibe right now with the Bengals.
It's not great
at all. It's not great. I don't like last year T. Higgins got hurt, and there was a lot of the conversations around him. Is he gonna get hurt again? They lose some of their stuff for the running back position. I feel like the defense isn't quite as good as it used to be. It's still good. It's still a good unit. And, obviously you can't go against Big Lou, but like at the end of the day, I feel like the AFC North beats up on each other a little bit. I have the Colts as the 6 seed and the Chargers as the 7 seed. I didn't want to go chalk and do the same thing as you. I think Miami and the Bengals will be teams that lose out on tiebreakers, that both are going, man, like we lost 2 or 3 games due to Burrow or Tua getting hurt or something there and kind of kicking themselves. So Chiefs, Jets, Ravens, Texans, Bills, Colts, Chargers. So a little different than you.
I like a lot of people are sort of on to the Chargers because Harbaugh, and I read somewhere like his first year, it's like +4, +5 wins, like a turnaround from the last year.
He's just like 5.5 wins.
I just can't get past there's a lack of playmakers on that offense that it's going to put a lot on Justin Herbert.
Yeah, if Joe Alt's good right away between him and Slater and Jim Harbaugh could just make any guard and center look good. So,
Lad McConkey, 100 catches for 800 yards.
I feel, the little Edelman stat line. Do I feel good about either of the last 2 picks? No, I feel like Miami and Cincinnati are probably the 2 better teams. I just feel like sometimes we got to find some new teams. And I feel like those are the teams that made sense to me. Jacksonville's another one you look at and you go, maybe could you make the argument there? I don't feel like I can make the argument for Cleveland or Pittsburgh just because of the quarterback situations are so like if Richardson's good, they might win the division. If Herbert's amazing and they really run the ball like that, they could compete with Kansas City. Like they really could. In terms of the wild card round, it'd be Jets hosting the Chargers. I believe if I have that correct, the Jets beating the Chargers. I can't travel West Coast. I know they're going to run the football, but I don't think the Chargers ceiling is that high. I just think their floor is much higher than it was a year ago. I have Baltimore beating Indy, and I have Buffalo beating Houston. So a little different than you. Josh Allen has been really good in the playoffs, and especially in the wild card round, he is special. It kind of as the later gets on the playoffs.
He's not why they've come short in the postseason. No. Certainly that 13-second game. I mean, he was phenomenal in that game.
I have the Chiefs beating the Bills. If I believe my math's correct, I have the Jets beating the Ravens. As much as my heart wants to pick the Jets to beat the Chiefs in the AFC title game, and it very well could happen, you never know. I still have the Chiefs going back there. I feel like we're going to have – I'll tease it. I think the rematch of last year's opening game will be our Super Bowl matchup. But I feel like Jets Chiefs AFC title game, the Jets are good enough that Rodgers and company runs it back one more time, and they probably have Devontae at that point, and we're going in like, the Jets are the betting favorite in the AFC to make the Super Bowl again, but come up just short. Again, Baltimore flummoxes a little bit in the division round. The Bills get as far as possible and kind of reload here. So again, Chiefs, Jets, Ravens, Texans, Bills, Colts, and Chargers for me on the AFC side.
Yeah, pretty. I applaud you. I seriously, I kept looking at it going, you can't have all the same 17. You just can't. And I was like,
you can't do it. Okay. You got to find it.
I swapped out the one. Cincinnati was the one because of Cleveland, obviously, last year. Cleveland's an interesting one because, again, defensively, I think they're stacked. But as we talked about in the preview, like
Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun hasn't been good since the COVID year. And look, he hasn't played a lot of football. So maybe this is the year he stays healthy and it all comes together and he knocks off that rust. But until I see it, I'm not ready to believe it. Let's do. We're big onto our sponsors. We love Prize Picks. We also love Game Time. Obviously, you and I, football. I mean, we live for it. If you're not watching the game live, you're recording it. You got the NFL Plus, which it doesn't always work, by the way. But when it does, you're able to see what you need to see. They probably should take some of the money they save from some of the. No, I don't want to go there. But we love to watch football. Just saw a great college game. Boston College goes down to Florida State. Bill O'Brien's first game with BC. They beat Florida State. So you're watching and you want to get involved. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Just for instance, BC's at home this weekend. Duquesne is the opponent. Like, obviously, that's a lower level, but great experience, great viewing in that stadium. And you can get tickets on Game Time for like as low as like $6 for a college football game. Like, that's gonna be a nice weekend. Like, that's the kind of thing you can do. So Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. I led off for the AFC playoffs. You, sir, Will Parkinson, the great Will Parkinson, you get to lead off the NFC.
I hinted at a little bit here, and we talked a lot about it. I think Detroit's poised to make a 15 of the 17 weeks they're playing in a dome. They are stacked roster. I think the concerns you mentioned about the offensive line age is real. I think the Jared Goff good, not great effect, but only good indoors effect matters, but it doesn't matter because they are playing 15 of the 17 weeks indoors. So, kind of 99 and 2000 Rams and 2001 Rams-ish. Like, if you're hosting every playoff game and you're playing your entire season indoors, why does it matter how well you play outside? And then the Super Bowl is obviously indoors as well. So, the Lions is the 1 seed. I went back and forth with this. I think Green Bay is going to be really damn good, and I think Green Bay might be a 12 or 13 win team. I just happen to think Detroit's probably going to be a 14-win team. And I think we mentioned some of the bottom in this division. Chicago's going to be much improved, but I don't think physically they're going to be able to rush the passer well enough to beat Detroit at least twice, definitely not maybe only once. And I think from a Minnesota perspective, again, a spunky 7 or 8 win team, but I don't think those wins are coming against Detroit. So lead off with Detroit as the 1 seed. Again, this one's a little weird. I'm going to have Philly as the 2 seed, but I don't feel great about this one. This is the one that, like, Philly and Dallas both could be the 1 seed and both could miss the playoffs. The talent on Philly is really good. I think they'll figure it out for a year, but I also think there's a situation where, like, I'll get to in a moment, where Philly could be awesome in the regular season, and if they lose early in the postseason, Nick Sirianni is the first name, and Jalen Hurts is going to be the next name, depending on how things go. I think they're going to run the ball really well. I think they're going to play really good defense. The defense should be much improved. And I just think the division sucks. So I think they're going to get like probably 3 or 4 kind of cheapies. They beat up on Washington every time. Although Washington randomly goes into Philly sometimes and wins, and they own the Giants. So it just, to me, feels like they split with Dallas and they're 5-1 in the division. They eke that one out there. I have the Rams winning the division as the 3 seed there. I think if they can get anything from this defense, and I mean like literally bare minimum, and they keep Stafford healthy, they're going to score 30 plus points a game. No one's guarding Cooper Kupp, Puka, Kyron Williams. The list goes on and on with this group. The offensive line should be awesome. McVay is special, especially in terms of game planning and running out different personnel and formation. So I just love this Rams team. And then the NFC South, I'm going to go with Atlanta. I don't feel great about it personally, just because I feel like Tampa Bay is that team that isn't really that good, but Jason Light's like literally one of the best GMs in football, and Todd Bowles has figured out how to be a pretty solid coach in this league as a head coach. So the top four in terms of division winners: Detroit as the 1 seed, the 2 seed Philadelphia Eagles, 3 seed Los Angeles Rams, 4 seed the Atlanta Falcons. I just almost forgot what team I even was going there. I have coming in at the 5 seed. I have San Fran. I think San Fran will be good. I think it just won't be as smooth as this year. I think they're due for a little bit of regression, just a little bit, not a ton. I kind of, I don't know, I go back and forth there. I have Dallas as the 6 seed. Dallas is a team, again, that I mentioned. Don't feel great about them at all. It's a lot of stuff going on with Dallas that, similar to Cincinnati, it doesn't feel great. The 7 seed's the one where, again, anything could happen. Sorry, Green Bay was the 6, Dallas is the 7. That's where I knew I was forgetting one. Green Bay, I think, is going to be really good. As I mentioned, I don't know if last year was a bit of an aberration with how good they finished the year. And Jordan Love played literally as perfect a football as you could possibly play for 10 straight weeks. So again, it's the wild card. I have San Fran, Green Bay, and then finishing it up there with Dallas. 2 versus 7. Philly, Dallas, 3rd time around. I think Philly gets the job done there in the wild card round. 3 versus 6, Rams against Green Bay. I believe the Rams get the job done at home, even though it'll probably be 98% Packers fans.
It might be more Packers fans than Rams fans.
It's inside though, so I never know with them inside. And then the 4-5 matchup, I think San Francisco kicks the crap out of Atlanta. It kind of feels a little bit like, depending on what Atlanta we get, there's a Legion of Boom-ish where they kind of got put out to pasture that Atlanta playoff game in 2016. So I one fear with that game. It's literally in 6 months, it doesn't matter, but that would be my fear looking back.
Mark the tape.
Mark the tape there. I think Detroit takes care of business. With San Francisco, I think inside, the physicality. I think San Francisco's against the run's not been great in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. There, and then this is the one that's Philly Rams. I think the Rams go into Philly and get the job done. I'm extremely high on the Rams. I think this gets Sirianni fired, losing a home playoff game to a warm weather team. And then I think Detroit beats the Rams in a rematch of last year's probably game of the year, or one of the games of the year. Detroit Chiefs Super Bowl. I'll get to my pick in them, when we finish up here. But Detroit's going to be at home inside, as I mentioned, the entirety of the season, potentially the entirety of the playoffs. And I just feel like this is the year that we kind of are oh my God, the Lions are in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. If you're into to narratives, Detroit getting to a Super Bowl is a pretty remarkable.
There'll be a lot of talk. If my prediction goes right, there'll be a lot of talk of Jets Lions Super Bowl, which was I wanted to get there, but until the Jets kind of solve this Reddick situation and maybe we see Rodgers play, it's hard to get there.
All right, so for my predictions, I have Detroit as the number 1 seed. Again, you mentioned it, the idea that they're playing inside for pretty much the entirety of the regular season, never mind the postseason, is absurd. So I waffled back and forth between San Fran and the Rams. You made a compelling argument for them when we did our preview. I went back and looked at some things. I just can't get past no Aaron Donald. And so when you start looking at it from a talent perspective, and Kyle's had this sort of magic over McVay, I'm going to keep San Francisco as the division winner and the 2 seed. I have Philadelphia winning the NFC East. Again, that coin toss between them and Dallas, as far as I'm concerned, is how that was going to play out. And then Atlanta is sort of the default winner in the division that I think nobody cares about. And I wouldn't be totally surprised, by the way, if the team that won that division finished 8-9. I have Atlanta 9-8 in my projections, but wouldn't be the least bit surprised if that division is just completely a slogfest and we hear, more talk about the idea of getting rid of the divisions and just give me the 7 best teams and, let's play out that way. So then I get to the playoffs, wild card round. I have San Francisco beating Dallas. That will be the end of Mike McCarthy in Dallas. We'll hear immediate rumors about Bill Belichick because of his relationship with Jerry Jones, but I think Bill would say no.
If my Cowboys Eagles thing, it'll be who gets Bill Belichick, who gets fired.
Yeah,
first.
with the Bill Belichick Bowl. I have Philadelphia's a 3 seed beating the Rams again. I just think coming back to the East Coast, and again, I'm not in love with the things that have gone on with Philadelphia, but I do really appreciate the talent there. And then I have Green Bay going into Atlanta because Atlanta's the division winner and beating Atlanta. That takes me to the division round where I have Detroit beating Green Bay. I think that game is going to be a phenomenal 34-31, who has the ball last type of situation. That rivalry is heating up. Both those teams are really exciting football teams. Then San Francisco going out to Philly and beating Philly. And to your point, I think that's the end of Nick Sirianni. Even though he gets one playoff win, that's not enough for the way they built that team. That takes me to the conference championship, where the reverse of last year. Detroit gets it done at home. They beat San Francisco. San Francisco doesn't get to another Super Bowl. Detroit does. So that leaves me with Baltimore and Detroit for my Super Bowl prediction. And yes, Lamar Jackson, you get to host the game next year to kick off the NFL season. You are going to win a Super Bowl title. And oh, by the way, I just want you to remind me of this next year when we're doing this pod, that if Baltimore does not win the title this year, I am not allowed to pick them again next year. Because I believed in them last year. I believe in his talent. I just feel like eventually it's going to overcome and he's going to put these playoff things behind him. And I think this is the year that it happens.
I will happily remind you that I have the Lions beating the Chiefs. It scares the crap out of me that I have the Jets, the Lions.
Yes.
Like, both of those teams and the Rams with no defense, all and then Chiefs trying to three-peat all in a conference title game. Like, I'm probably not going to get a single one of those picks right. But Detroit finishing the job down in New Orleans, and we have the Jared Goff dunk on, everyone kind of parade the same way when the Rams won. It was all about Matt Stafford and, McVay getting over the hump. I think it'll be a lot of Dan Campbell. Everyone told me biting kneecaps was stupid and corny. And I told you, and Jared Goff saying, I've been doubted my whole life, even though you're the number one overall pick. Cal Berkeley, beautiful wife, number one overall pick, the whole 9 yards guy that's made a Super Bowl in a conference title game before. We'll get that narrative for 2 straight weeks, and they'll end up getting the job done. I think there'll be a lot of Mahomes. Is he better than Brady if he wins that game? And if he loses, it's the LeBron. You get there every year, so you get more over criticized. But I think I had 5 new playoff teams instead of 6, which is a curse of death. And I had the Chiefs going back through Super Bowl, which is probably even stupider.
I believe I only had 1. That's just terrible. It's not going to work that way. Just so you know, I'm just putting it out there. But hey, that's what I said. I'm going to run with it.
The Jets are your only team that was new.
Oh, actually 2, because I had Cincinnati as well.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
And Cincinnati, look, if Joe Burrow doesn't get hurt last year, Cincinnati probably slides in. All right, let's get to our. We're just doing the major awards: MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Offense, Defense, Coach of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year. Let's start with the Comeback Player of the Year. I think you and I are unanimous in our choice here.
Based on the fact that the Jets go to the title game, there's 0 chance Aaron Rodgers doesn't win this award. The only way he doesn't win this to me is simply if he gets hurt again. So if he stays healthy, I did my stat predictions, put out a stat model, this morning. I had him 4,100 yards, 32 touchdowns, 8 picks. If he does that and the Jets go to the conference title game, probably the statue in New York, let alone win Comeback Player of the Year. Yeah,
and look, remember they redid the award after last year. Joe Flacco won the award over DeMar Hamlin. Look, Hamlin didn't play a lot of games last year, 4 or 5, I think it was, that he dressed for, was a special teamer. But a lot of people thought he should have won the award. Joe Flacco was coming back from just not playing. He wasn't hurt. He just wasn't – no one deemed him a starter anymore. He wins the award. So now it's coming back from an injury. Rodgers is, to me, the obvious the choice here. Coach of the Year. I'm going to stay with the team that's going to win the Super Bowl. And normally this is not how it works. Normally the good teams, you don't tend, like Belichick barely won Coach of the Year, and yet the Patriots were in the Super Bowl 9 times in 17 years or 18 years or whatever it was. Normally it's the team that sort of exceeds expectations and gets to that level. But I think Harbaugh is going to do such a nice job this year. I think, look, in my model, I had them going, both them and Kansas City winning 14 games. And I just think people are going to say, Harbaugh, he's due, give it to him. 14 wins in a regular season, the number 2 seed. And as I have them winning the Super Bowl, which, whatever, that doesn't factor into the award, but that's where I went with that one.
Yeah. I don't know. I've got, this is the one that Coach of the Year is weird, man. I don't know. I just feel like it's so stupid. It's like Brian Daboll's won. Like, I think,
well, look,
he's won twice.
You had the Chargers in there. If the Chargers get in there after the way it's gone, especially after the way it went last year under Brandon Staley, like, you don't think that the other Harbaugh is going to get a ton of awards?
I'll go Shane Steichen wins. The Colts get in as a 6th seed. I think they'll be a 10-win team. I think he's back-to-back years of showing. And if he develops Anthony Richardson, the amount of praise he's going to get. So I'll go Shane Steichen wins the award. Similar to kind of your argument there. I think Saleh is the guy that could get fired this year and could win Coach of the Year if the Jets win enough games. There's a couple of guys like McVay will always be in contention if the Rams are as good as we think. Things, Dan Campbell, obviously, et cetera. But I'll go Shane Steichen. I think that's the guy that people after this year will go, yeah, the Eagles probably should have had Shane Steichen as their head coach the next 5 years.
Yeah, interesting when you kind of like, we talked a lot about some of the play callers, and like Bobby Slowick is obviously, if he has another good year, he's going to be a head coach, get interviews this year. I think Shane's a better play caller than Slowick is, and Slowick didn't have some answers near the end of the year. So I'm just curious to see what his next progression is. Not here to knock him, but Steichen is an excellent choice. Rookie of the Year, offense, defense. I didn't want to do this for offense. Caleb Williams is the chalk pick, and I can't, I guess I could sort of make an argument for Jayden Daniels in the sense that he's probably going to run for a ridiculous amount of yards, because I just think that offense is going to need him to run for a ridiculous amount of yards. So maybe he's not stat padding, but maybe the stats end up looking better. The counting stats look better than the actual performance does. But I had to go with Caleb here. I just think he's poised and ready. Again, neither one of us have the Bears making the playoffs, although, some people certainly nationally have sort of gone that way with it. But I think he's going to have a really, really good rookie year.
Yeah, I saw some people picking the Bears to go to the Super Bowl.
I'd like to have what they're having.
That was an interesting way of trying to get clicks. Offensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go Jayden Daniels for pretty much the reasons you just mentioned. I think he's going to throw the ball about 950 times. I think that he's going to have a much better version that's fun of Sam Howell last year, which is a gazillion yards, a gazillion touchdowns, and a gazillion interceptions. And we're going to go, and it's going to be the whole conversation all next offseason. Is Jayden better than Caleb and all this stuff? And in reality, Caleb's definitely better, but they're going to have it's going to be that whole debate on get up every morning and first things first. And like every single debate show is going to be like, is Jayden better than Caleb? Did the Bears make the wrong mistake because Caleb had a really good, but like rookie year that was probably a little bit more efficient in terms of like, didn't throw a bunch of picks, whatever. I don't know. I just have a weird feeling we're going to end up where Jayden Daniels is that guy. Defensively, did you roll your defensive one?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Defensively, I've really struggled with, honestly. Like I don't know how to explain it, but the draft is such a crapshoot on its own, and then defensively, it's a very big like stat award in a sense. Like I don't know, you look back and you go, okay, like this Dallas Turner because he's in Minnesota and like he'll play a lot. I'm going to go Latu with the Colts. I know I'm kind of going Colts heavy in these awards, but I think if the Colts are as good and they're a playoff team, I think that means Latu's probably pretty damn good this year. And I think Shane Steichen coaches his tail off. So I think Latu in terms of sack numbers do really well with Rookie of the Year. We saw it with Will Anderson a year ago. Unless you're a defensive back that accumulates just an insane amount of interceptions, it usually ends up going to an edge rusher or linebacker. And I think, Latu will be the guy, for me.
Yeah, I thought Jared Verse here was initially when I started zeroing in the award, I was thinking Verse, but I just wonder another rookie alongside him on that defensive line. Did they split some of the numbers? Did they split some of the vote? So that's why I ended up settling on Dallas Turner, because that Flores has to have another answer. Started to get figured out a little bit late last year with all the blitzing and the simulated pressures and whatnot. But one of the things they did really well was sort of isolate his edge guys on one-on-one blocking. And I think Turner's obviously going to get a fair amount of snaps if he stays healthy. And I could see him with 7.5, 8.5 sacks somewhere in there. And to your point, like you get those kind of numbers, you're probably going probably going to win the award. Defensive Player of the Year. Micah Parsons in his first 3 years in the league, second, and third in Defensive Player of the Year voting. He gets it this year. I think Mike Zimmer is going to go bananas with him. He's going to line him up. Sort of Dan moved him around quite a bit too. And I can just see him having a 16, 17 sack season, forcing 3 or 4 fumbles, interception, like all that sort of thing, touchdown, like that feels like the kind of year Micah Parsons is going to have. And also feels like kind of the year because Jerry got really squirrely with these contracts. And then Micah Parsons is going to be like, I'm Defensive Player of the Year, buddy. 17
$40 million.
Yes, you will pay me more than any non-quarterback in NFL history. So I have Micah Parsons from the Cowboys winning the DPOY.
You kind of referenced his name earlier because I have them, as a top 3 seed. I'm going to go Kyle Hamilton. I think I debated Sauce. I debated Watt, Parsons, Bosa, the usual names. I thought Quentin Williams, I think, will finish as a top 5 guy. I'll get to my bold. I'll say my bold prediction. I just landed on Kyle Hamilton in terms. I feel like there's a lot of notoriety. These awards are very much the storyline too, and I think Kyle Hamilton, the Ravens are on national TV a lot. He'll have a bunch of big moments. He might have a big moment on Thursday night, and that propels you for 4 or 5 weeks. And the next big moment, that's kind of what happens. And he'll accumulate a couple sacks, a couple interceptions, a couple forced fumbles, have a high tackles number. So I'll go Kyle Hamilton here. I just think we've seen so many edge rushers kind of rack up this award. I think we see a reversal here, and I think a lot of DBs will make their top 5 finishes in 2024.
I like it. How about Offensive Player of the Year? Who you got?
So this one is I've debated with Brees and Garrett Wilson 500 times. So you think if the Jets are as good as we think, that those 2 guys will put up monster numbers. I'll get to them with a bold prediction, but I think Brees will narrowly finish second. I think it's hard sometimes for running backs to win this award just because, I don't know, we're in a passing league and those guys don't accumulate as many stats. Justin Jefferson's going to end up winning this award again, and I think it's for this reason only. He's going to have a Tyreek-like year in terms of he's going to get a gazillion. I'm talking like Addison. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
I don't know.
Hawkinson when he comes back.
Whenever he comes back, and I think Justin Jefferson's on a mission of I want to be I'm not known as the best guy in the league now. People have passed me a little bit and the whole thing. And he's going to have 130 catches and 1,700 yards and 15 touchdowns. And the Vikings go 6-11. And we're like, oh, that's weird. This guy's on a bad team. Why is he winning an award? But I think we'll see Justin Jefferson win this award. And, I think it'll be a stat accumulation award similar to Jayden Daniels, where bad team, but the numbers are too hard to pass up for voters.
Yeah. This award has sort of become the quarterback wins the MVP. And so when the Offensive Player of the Year rolls around, it tends to be a non-quarterback who wins it. And I boiled it down to 2 people. CeeDee Lamb, who is by far and away the most important target on that team. And you talk about target volume, he should get 12, 13, 14 targets a game if he stays healthy. And your boy, Garrett Wilson, because I think Garrett Wilson is, especially as you're slow playing Mike Williams to start the season, you're not sure what you're going to get from your third receiver. Obviously, they are going to lean on Breece Hall quite a bit, but I just have a feeling he's going to eat a ton of targets. And I just think back to some of the years that Devontae Adams had with Aaron Rodgers. And even if this isn't that Aaron Rodgers, if it's something, as you mentioned, the numbers you threw out, or I even said his last year in Green Bay when he was totally disengaged and still had statistically a really nice year, he's going to feed Garrett. So I just got back and forth. In the end, I'm going to say it's going to be CD because I think, honestly, I don't think there's anyone else to throw the ball to there. Yeah. So if he gets 130 catches and 1,600, 1,700 yards, I would not be the least bit surprised. So I'll go CeeDee Lamb on that front. MVP, boring. I'm boring. It's going to be Pat. Their offense is going to be better than it was last year, even though, again, I push back against the 2018 comparisons. I think that's nuts. But I just think he's going to have a monster year. It's going to come down to him and Lamar. Lamar won it last year, sort of passing it back and forth. And I just think, Mahomes are going to be in my projections, 14 wins and the number 1 seed. Pat Mahomes is your MVP. Shocker.
Matt Stafford.
Whoa! Yeah, well, you're riding the Rams. I like it.
Matt Stafford wins the MVP and retires after the 2024 NFL season. That's one of the bold predictions. I'm just going to blend the two. We're going to get to it in a second. Bold predictions is the Rams basically said 12 months ago, we're going to guarantee your next 2 years, give you a raise, and you're going to play. Can you give us 2 years? Can you give us 2? And last year they were better than they thought they were going to be this year. They're kind of like, can we get one more year out of Matt before he's a guy that's kind of basically talked a lot about, like, I'm going to go before my body goes because my body's already starting to go. I think Mahomes is a good choice. I think Lamar's up there. I think Jared Goff's going to be in the conversation if they're as good as we think. But if the Rams are the 3 seed and they win 2 or 3 playoff games, I know the MVP doesn't matter in that, but like if they're going to be as good as we think, Stafford's going to put up crazy numbers. I think there's going to be a lot of talk all year. There's going to be a lot of talk all year of like, is this a last dance for him? And I think there's been a lot of, he won the title, but he got a lot of praise, but didn't get maybe the regular season praise.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe if he stays healthy, I think it's a bold take, but I don't think it's quite as crazy because if you look around the league, coaches, GMs, all the polls that came out, whether it's the NFL Top 100, Jeremy Fowler's list, there's the other one that comes out as well, The Athletic and stuff, like Stafford's like ranked as a top 5 guy.
Mm-hmm.
So if everyone's seen that he's a top 5 guy and they're a top 3 seed, it feels like there's some type of, it's probably a bad take. I just feel like we might get one of those. I don't know. I keep referencing this. This award is so narrative driven, and Rams were not an A team a year ago. 2 years ago, Matt Stafford might retire, and all of a sudden he's got 38 touchdowns and 14 picks, but he's got 5,000 yards, and the Rams are 12-5. Like, probably win MVP.
One of my bold predictions is that Dak Prescott ends up signing a massive extension with Dallas. I'm making fun of Jerry, and I look, he said it, like the fact that there's nothing done, Prescott said, is like, what does that really say? It doesn't say anything great in terms of how things are going. There was some buzz, 2 weeks ago that, they're making progress, and it felt like maybe it was going to happen. And I think Dak's going to play well in his FU year. And I think Jerry's going to look at it and go, what's out there? What can I do? It's not Trey Lance. We gave Trey Lance a ton of playing time. He ain't it. We sacrificed the 4th round pick thinking maybe that would be our insurance. Do we want to go into the draft? He's in his 80s, hasn't won a title in a zillion years. And I think at the end of the day, he's going to have to say, hold my nose. Here's the $60+ million a year to be my quarterback. He'll be the first $60+ million a year quarterback, and he'll end up staying in Dallas. I thought of other scenarios. I was like, well, if the Giants flame out, could you see the Giants just throwing bags of money at him? I'm like, I don't think Dak will go to New York. I think he's going to eventually, like, being the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, even if you haven't won a title there with them, and they haven't won one in a long time, it's about as prominent a job and sort of the stuff that comes with it that you can get.
Yeah, my other bold prediction, the Jets will have 2 players on each side of the ball, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Quinn Williams, and Sauce Gardner, who all finish in the top 5 for offensive and or defensive player of the year. None of them will win, but they will all be in consideration or in that top 5 category. So Matt Stafford MVP is one bold prediction and retires after the year. I think it's probably even I think that's actually like a slightly less bold prediction than him winning the MVP. And the other one is the Jets have 2 top 5 finishers and offensive defensive player of the year. Neither guy wins on either side of the ball, but both guys are, right in the mix. And I think there's a lot of angry Jets fans that they missed the Super Bowl barely, and the awards night, only one of their 5 guys gets an award.
So I kind of went back and forth on this. And again, it's my first one is almost like a what happens in the offseason thing. But Belichick is looming over this whole thing. And we mentioned him a couple times in passing about Dallas. We mentioned him about Philly. New York, obviously, we know how he feels about the Giants organization, that whole entire area. If Dayball flames out, if they don't make enough progress, that Daniel Jones isn't the answer, which we think he's probably not the answer, does Belichick end up there? Those 3 spots are so juicy and so exciting. But at the end, I think Bill, even though he's had the power and the control for years and years and years, Philadelphia makes all the sense in the world. They'll still, regardless of what happens this year, they'll still have plenty of talent. He wants the record. That's doable in a year and a half in Philadelphia with what they have. he'll win with Jalen Hurts. I'm not saying win a title, but he can win. Whereas if you look at New York, you still have to find a quarterback. Like it could take 3 years to get that record. I don't know that he wants to do that. I think he wants to be done, get it, and then go back to Nantucket, put his feet up, and probably find another 20-year-old girl that he can date. Just saying.
I have absolutely nothing to add. That was a fantastic way to end that.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, please like, rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, and get involved with Game Time and Prize Picks. I'm telling you, it's worth it. They're giving you free money. Like if you don't have an account, CLNS and either one of those gets you free money. Go do it. You'll see what we're talking about in terms of getting tickets or playing the daily fantasy type things. That's the way to go. So we appreciate you. We'll see you at the end of the week as we start to settle into a normal schedule. And then Monday we come back with just game after game. I cannot wait to get to it, but still Friday first, then Monday. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you soon.